Hi, I'm Limo Milan, and in this video we're going to look at sidechaining in Ableton Live. Now, to begin with, sidechaining as a term is actually a bit vague. It doesn't necessarily mean anything specific. It's often referred to as a term where you might hear a 4/4 kind of beat pushing other sound elements out of the way, and you get this push and pull thing. So a typical example is like a pad sound or a big large dominant sound in a mix being pushed back by the kick drum every time. And it's quite exciting in terms of what it's doing, but that is actually sidechain compression or sidechain ducking effect, where another sound is pushed out the way because the kick, in this case, is telling it when it needs to duck out the way. Now in Ableton Live, sidechaining is actually available across quite a few different devices, not just a compressor. So that's what I'm going to show you first, is what's available, and then we're going to focus in on one particular device and what we can do with that. So in terms of the Ableton Live browser and the audio effects that are here that can be used in a sidechain fashion, we have compressor, we have glue compressor, and we have multiband dynamics. Now these are all processes that change the volume of a signal at a specific moment in time when they're told to do so. And that's where the sidechain comes into effect, where you use the kick drum, let's say, for example, to tell those things to start doing their thing. Now, multiband is slightly different because it's frequency specific. So whereas the first two devices here are compressors, so they just alter the overall volume of the chosen sound, a multiband dynamic is more like an equalizer or an EQ, where it'll push back a certain frequency area of a sound. So other things that we have within Ableton Live that we can use for sidechaining is the gate, and we can use the gate to open up and allow a sound to come through when that sidechain signal tells it to. And then we also have auto filter. An auto filter is like an EQ in respect that it alters the frequency balance of a signal, but it's more about rejecting certain frequencies and allowing other frequencies to come through, rather than an EQ, which can do that, but can also just be used to either raise or lower the volume of specific frequencies too. So let's focus in on auto filter, and I'll show you how we can utilize that with a sidechain setup. So let's just remove those devices, just holding Shift to highlight more than one, hit backspace. Now at the moment, I have a percussive sound and I have like a main drum beat, and within that drum beat is a kick drum that will drive my sidechaining effect. So at the moment, the whole picture sounds like this. Okay, so my percussion sound is large ambient sound, so even though the percussion plays every now and then, there's a lot of information that tails off afterwards, which is my reverb sound. And what I can do is I can set up a filter by turning it on, and manually I can move the filter, which I'll demonstrate now in terms of what it'll do to the sound. Okay, so that's the manual alteration of what the filter's doing, but I want to get a sound source to tell that filter when to make some movements. So the first thing we can do with auto filter is use what's called the envelope control. Now, an envelope is a shape that is triggered when an event happens. So sometimes we have envelopes when we're using MIDI instruments, and the MIDI note tells an envelope when it's going to begin. And in audio, we have a sound signal, and when it starts, it creates the beginning of this envelope shape. And that envelope shape can be told to move that filter. So at the moment, this filter is set up for its normal behavior. So I'm processing my percussive loop with the filter, and I'm going to tell the envelope to react to the percussive loop to make the filter move. So I need to increase the envelope in a positive range, so I can move to a negative range, which will pull the filter down when the audio signal happens, or I can set it to a positive range so it pushes the filter up when the signal happens. So the envelope is now reacting to the sound signal and pushing that filter up. So in order for us to hear that motion and have it do something actually audible to the signal, I need to lower the filter itself so it has somewhere to move to when the signal comes in. So as a static setting, my filter is quite low down, so it's only allowing the very low frequencies to pass. And now the envelope, when that percussive signal is played, is going to move that filter upwards. So we just take the envelope aspect away so you can hear it in a static fashion again. And then increase the envelope range so you can hear it affecting it in more and more of an obvious way. So remember, filtering is happening, an envelope is being triggered, but that envelope is being triggered by the sound that we're actually filtering at the same time. So the percussion loop that I'm playing is responsible for everything happening right now. So what we're going to do is disassociate that relationship. I still want to process my percussive loop, but I want something else to tell that envelope when to start and stop, and that's going to be my kick drum. So that's the sidechain aspect. I'm no longer listening internally for that trigger, I'm listening externally. So I'm going to sidechain that signal to this filter. So every device that I brought up before has this little sidechain toggle switch here. And as soon as you open that up, you have access to the sidechain functionality. So if you forget which devices have this or don't, look out for that little open up section there. To engage sidechaining, you turn on the sidechain button, and if I press play, you'll hear now that that envelope behavior doesn't happen anymore. So even though my envelope's still geared and ready to trigger that filter, I've taken away its sound source by turning the sidechaining on. And now I need to tell the sidechain section where it's going to listen to now to be told when to start and stop. So from the audio from menu, I need to go to my 909 core kit, which is where my kick drum lives. And then I need to tell it to listen to the sound that's in there itself. So I can choose to either have that sound sort listening to the original source sound, so just the raw audio clip, or I can choose to listen to that audio clip after it's been processed. I might have put some processing on there as well. So depending on your situation, you choose at which stage you take that signal as your sidechain input. I'm going to go for pre-effects, just so I'm going for the raw drum loop that I've got running there. And then, if I press play, we should hear a different rhythm to this filter because that drum loop is actually triggering it. So let's listen to that in context. I'm going to turn off the sidechain first, so you can hear the drums and the filter in its static position. And then I'm going to turn the sidechain on, and we should have a unified rhythm of that filter with the main drum playing. So again, without and with. Okay, so what's happened there is our signal has been processed by a filter, our percussive loop, and then we've chosen to disassociate the gate so it's no longer listening to the percussive loop to know when to start and stop moving the filter. So there's the envelope that's built into that gate, and we've told that envelope to no longer be triggered by that percussive loop and instead be triggered by our drum loop instead.